Hello world, my name is Derek, and today I'm going to be walking you through the basics of CSS transitions, how to set them up, and what they can be used for. So what is a CSS transition? A transition is basically a method of taking a change in appearance on a page and smoothing out that change. It can be triggered by anything that changes the CSS selector, so that's pseudo classes, such as when you put your mouse over something, or like when you click on a text box and the border changes, that's all pseudo classes. It can also be when you add or remove classes to an element, and as it turns out, JavaScript is more than happy to do this. We're actually already doing it with our navigation menus. There are multiple different ways to use them, as we'll get to later, but in essence they can make a page feel much more polished and nice to interact with. And a note. CSS has both transitions and animations. Transitions happen once, when explicitly triggered by something happening on the page or a script running in the background. They need to be told to happen. Animations, on the other hand, have the option of starting on their own accord and can repeat infinitely. All this stuff is going to be about transitions, though there is quite a bit of overlap. Now, as you can see, there are a couple different CSS properties that can be transitioned around. A couple pages, that is. I have taken the liberty of bolding some of the more important ones, notable ones like background and text colors. You can change how thick the font is. Bottom and left, that's good for absolute positioning, the height. And there's everything you knew about borders, and then everything you didn't know about borders. Myself, I'm a fan of border end-to-end radius, it's really cool. Margin and padding, you can do some really interesting things with that. And also opacity, you can make things appear and disappear on demand. Now, there's about 200 different things on this list. Make sure you have them all memorized, they will be on the test, and they will also be on this handy-dandy MDN page that lists them all for you. And there's even links. So the actual use of CSS transitions can be applied to many different things. Say the navigation menus we've been working with in this class. How do you think you'd be able to make it smoothly slide out when you want it to? Now, pages that have large menus, sidebars, etc. can slide them in and away when they're opened and closed instead of just snapping back and forth. Let's look at one of them. Some of you may have seen this website a couple times before. The sidebars, they slide in and out, nice and smooth. And also, when you click on a reference, that slides in too. And the new ones slide up over the old ones. And when the page is small enough, this sidebar overlaps everything else, and the rest of the page is faded away. And also when you change the theme, the header is nice and smooth as well. Now, for transitions on UI elements, that's something that Google in particular is really fond of. If you know how Android works, the notifications, how they appear, and when you swipe them away, and how when you stop an alarm, the whole big circle swipe across the whole screen and whatnot. Here's a CSS theme inspired by all that. You notice when every time I click one of these buttons, there's a subtle ripple animation across it. It's more visible here. And with the switches in particular, you can see they move on and off, right and left. All of this is working on CSS. Really cool. Lazy loading elements in image galleries. Lazy loading elements is the thing where elements don't bother loading until you scroll down far enough to actually see them. So let's look at this browser again and pop this open. You can see as I change the images back and forth, they slide in from the side and they expand to fill the area in the middle. And with this, when I refresh it, thank you. When I scroll down really fast, you'll see that the images, they will fade in as they load. And that's just one more way to make a website a bit nicer to use. You can even find 3 completely different examples all right here in slides. When I exit this and change the slides back and forth, let me zoom in a bit, you notice, well, not that much, you can notice there's something at the bottom that Google really wants me to take a look at. The movement, it draws your attention, even though it's way off to the bottom of the screen. While we're here, check this. It's not to draw your attention, you're already looking here, but it's nice and slick anyways. And once I start this presentation up again, see that full screen notification slowly slides away. And down here, it's not the center of attention. It knows it's not trying to be. So when I leave it alone, it quietly fades away. Now, over here we have a simple example of how to make a transition happen. Here we have the HTML, here we have the CSS. This div is empty, but it's given size and color by the CSS. And when I hover over it, this stuff happens to it, given by these parameters. Now let's see it in action. When I hover over it, that's what it does. Now let's mess with this a bit. Say I want to add a border. Let's see, hover over it, 10 pixels, solid, and let's say gold. Well, it certainly does add a border, but it isn't transitioning. That's because I need to add it up here. Let's try that now. There it goes. I need to give it a state to revert to when it's done being there. Try that now. Cool. Now let's really mess things up here. Oh yes. Where does that go? It goes there? Okay, let's see. Top. Why not? That's more like it. So now it's down there. I want to make it so it flies over here when I hover over it. So let's do that. Let's see, about like 400 pixels should be enough. Here we go. Here we go. Now, why isn't it doing anything? Well, remember when I didn't put the border up here and it just immediately reverted back? It's not in the transition yet, so when I hover over it, it's immediately just teleporting over here, and then it's not under the mouse anymore, so it just immediately goes back. So nothing's happening. So when I add it to the transition though, let's see what it does. Yep, there it goes. And there it goes back. Good, good. Actually, get back here. I got some toys to play with. This is a page that I've thrown up. Phrasing I've put together. Here we have these buttons. They toggle a class on these sections here. You see the clicked appears and disappears, and that's all that's needed to get a transition going. So here we have the text color, and also the text color, as well as the background and box shadow, and they're all transitioned at once, nice and smoothly. The font size, you know what that is. Fun. Now transform, that's a whole thing. Let's see. You can take an image or an element and do all sorts of weird things with it. What I'm doing with it here is I'm rotating it and scaling it at the same time, so let's see what it does. Now, I'm sure there's ways to use this productively, but now, you know what height and width is? No surprises there, except for the part where the bottom has a slight delay before it goes, so it gives it an interesting look. I think we're about done here. Okay, last but not least, let's look at what makes these things tick. So like all things CSS, many things CSS has a shorthand: property, duration, timing function, delay. These two are optional. Property is what gets animated, that's the 200 item long list. Duration is how long it takes. Timing function is how smooth to animate it, that'll make sense in a bit. And delay is how long it waits until the animation starts. And here's another page. Here we have the properties, color, width, font size, box shadow. Nothing too new here. Let's go with width. Duration is obviously how long it takes. 1 second is a pretty safe default. 0.5 seconds, you could obviously make it faster. Or you can make it slower. Or you could completely defeat the purpose of it being an animation at all. Transition at all. Let's go with 1 second. Timing function is how smooth it makes. Ease is the default. You see when it goes, it smoothly starts and ends. Let's go with linear and see what's different about that. Yeah, that's robot movement. Bezier, this is a whole wild thing. Yep, you can completely configure how you want it to look. So if I want it to go like that, or if I want it to go like that, or if I really want to slam it into place, I put this one way down here, this one here, and it just goes boom, just like that. And it's these 4 coordinates. This is the left coordinate, the pink numbers, and the blue numbers are the right one. These 4 numbers are just the Bezier. And you can see the other default options here. This is the ease in and out. That's the usual. There's linear. Ease in and out are also options. So that's the timing function. Let's go with ease. Now delay. No prizes for guessing what this does. 0. Half a second. 1 second. 2 seconds. Wait for it. There it goes. So these 4 properties combined, these 4 parameters, they can be combined to do all sorts of interesting things. So that's a quick primer on CSS Transitions. I hope you've gotten an idea of the sort of things that you can do with it. Oh yeah, this is neat. Some random dude, don't know who that is, but yeah. These 2 pages will be on my GitHub site. I will link them in the comments. Feel free to yell at me if I don't. And thank you for your time. Take care, and I will be seeing you in the thread.